Settle down, brother. This is the Kohler Report powered by ENC.com. South Africa is a movie. Welcome to the watch party. The list of people accused by General Mkhwanazi has got longer, and the number of political parties with representatives accused by General Mkhwanazi of undermining the work of the South African Police Service, specifically into the investigating of a drug cartel in Gauteng, has got longer. I said this on the TV show on Monday. We're going to need a bigger board. And now, after just 48 hours of General Mkhwanazi on the stand, we're going to have to wipe that board clean and have another board. General Mkhwanazi yesterday named two different members of parliament from two political parties. One of them, Diane Kohler Barnard, one of the lesser known but significant, as he calls her, veteran politicians from the Democratic Alliance, and another one from the National Coloured Congress, the NCC, Fadiel Adams, and accused them both of breaking the law. Let's be clear, breaking the law by releasing classified sensitive information into the public domain that he says they explicitly did to besmirch the reputations and public view of crucial heads of crime intelligence, including General Mkhwanazi's longtime ally, Dumisani Khumalo, the head of crime intelligence in the police, currently on bail after he was arrested on accusations or investigations of improperly appointing someone within crime intelligence. But what we're going to talk about today is how IDAC specifically, we'll tell you about it more in a second, it's a part of the NPA, in the eyes of Mkhwanazi has been compromised and is used to undermine and thwart criminal investigations into this Gauteng-based drug cartel. We're going to talk about all of this in the widening spread of Madlanga madness. Wow, that was an incredibly long intro, but I just needed to get it all out. But the only place you can watch it is on ENCA.com. The link is in the description on YouTube. Of course, you can go onto 3beaniesnetwork.com, which is another link in the description, to buy some merchandise to support our project of the 3 Beanies Network. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, give us a like and a subscribe. On Monday on the TV show, when we laid out all of the different webs of connections, some people got a little bit iffy with me, about the fact that I pointed out that General Mkhwanazi is linked to Fani Masemola, is linked to Dumisani Khumalo, and all seem to be, at least in some way, linked to former Police Minister Khumalo. And he may turn out to be a pure-as-driven snow-good guy cop. He may. But people want to believe that he is ultimately the perfect superhero with no problems and no sticky history, General Mkhwanazi. And throughout the rest of this inquiry, a lot of people are going to come on the stand and try to besmirch his reputation and try to show evidence that he's not a good guy. That is going to happen because he has already... And this is again, when we spoke earlier this week about why this commission is valuable and is going to be different and change the country, is because the mutually assured destruction, we've all got dirt on each other, so no one will talk so that nobody blows up the thing and then all talks. That is over now. People are going to come out and try to destroy Mkhwanazi's reputation. And look, we may discover that he's actually not such a perfect cop. We may discover that he's right about all these things that he said, but he's also done dark stuff. And there's going to be a fight over evidence and there's going to be a fight over testimony. But some people after Monday's TV show said, Dan, why are you casting aspersions on Mkhwanazi? Why are you saying that he might not be a good guy? And to that I say, I didn't say that. I said, there are factions within SAPS, and there are factions within politics, and there are factions within policing, and there are allegiances. So, as I pointed out on Monday, Dumisani Khumalo was involved in the political killings task team and in KZN local policing with General Mkhwanazi. They have reported to and worked with Fani Masemola. Fani Masemola tried to stop Senzo Mchunu attempt with Shadrach Sabir to end the political killings task team. They're all connected, and Senzo Mchunu's people believe that Mkhwanazi, Fani Masemola, and Dumisani Khumalo have been undermining Senzo Mchunu's reign as police minister by continuing to report to former police minister and another ANC massive player, Khumalo. So on Monday, I wasn't saying these guys are innocent, these guys are guilty. I'm saying these are the dynamics we're going to see. And we were exactly right. Because mostly what General Mkhwanazi spoke about yesterday, aside from the fact that Matlalas is apparently beginning blue light brigades, which you are, as a regular citizen, not allowed by law to be doing and getting from law enforcement, I think from the Metro cops in Gauteng, is General Mkhwanazi spoke about what he said was a concerted effort to protect a drug cartel in Gauteng, and that meant a concerted effort to undermine and besmirch the reputation of crime intelligence boss Dumisani Khumalo. Now, again, I will remind you from Monday that there are some people within South African politics and the ANC and elsewhere who believe that Dumisani Khumalo was inappropriately appointed to his position and he's unqualified to be there. And this was the second time that this has happened. But we are yet to find out the extent to which that is true. But these are all the dynamics that are happening as all these people try to sanitize their reputations and destroy the reputations of their ops. So Dumisani Khumalo earlier this year got arrested, out on bail. Fani Masemola, as soon as he's the National Police Commissioner, as soon as Dumisani Khumalo was put out on bail, he said he wanted Khumalo to go back to work because he'd organized an independent investigation into the allegations against Khumalo and found, ultimately, according to this independent investigation, that Khumalo had done nothing wrong and that the evidence wouldn't stand up in court and he wouldn't be found guilty. Now, that could be true, and or Dumisani Khumalo is one of Fani Masemola's allies in SAPS. So we've just got to keep all of these cooking, all of these potentials at the same time while we wait for more evidence and more testimony to come out. But what Mkhwanazi largely described yesterday is the attempt by politicians and members of the police service and the NPA to stop Dumisani Khumalo's investigative work into this drug cartel in Gauteng. And he specifically talked about IDAC, Investigating Directorate Against Corruption, which is a permanent unit within the National Prosecuting Authority, the NPA. Now, we've spoken at length about how the reason why there are no successful prosecutions and not many court cases around the Zondo Commission is because the NPA plus the Justice Department has been unable to put those cases together. There's been a lot of fighting between the NPA and the Justice Department about whose fault that is. But for Mkhwanazi to say that there's a permanent unit with powers of policing within the NPA that is compromised, and specifically the anti-corruption unit that is compromised to stop investigations into criminal networks, is absolutely massive. Now, Eric, you were saying that people involved in IDAC immediately called the Mkhwanazi's allegations baseless and said at the right time they would come out and defend themselves, but they said that he was acting completely out of line and just lying about the situation. But Mkhwanazi essentially said IDAC is being used by different bad people to stop active investigations from Khumalo and his compatriots or his allies into that drug cartel.
I think what's interesting about that is the fact that he was claiming that it was basically like there's two different factions of IDAC or within IDAC. So that like one is actually doing the good work and then the other one is trying to undermine the rest of the work.
I will tell you that some of the senior counsel and members of the Madlanga Commission yesterday were saying to Mkhwanazi about both that we just described about IDAC and what we're about to say about these two politicians. Do you have evidence? And he said, evidence is coming. Essentially, like someone else is going to testify later down the line in the commission, and they're going to provide the evidence of what I am saying here today. So you also need to remember that Mkhwanazi is using this time in the early days of the commission to set out all the things that he, agenda set the things that he thinks are important so that the South African public can remember and go, we want those answers later down the line in the Commission of Inquiry. Now, let's talk about Diane Kohler Barnard. She's a veteran MP for the Democratic Alliance, and she earlier this year spoke publicly about her concerns, to quote Franny Rabkin from Times Live, about a building purchased by crime intelligence in Berea and Durban, and she did that in a public statement in February. Here's Mkhwanazi's exact quotes so you understand exactly what he said, because he did not say, he accused her of besmirching the reputations of police, which makes it more difficult for them to do their work, distracts them from their work, and pulls undue attention towards them, using information that he says she should not have had, and certainly, even though she had it, should not have released to the public, unsanctioned. So his direct quote, there are many examples, but she is one of the leaders in our legislature who is participating in both breaking the law as well as fueling these malicious attacks that are happening within crime intelligence and ultimately at Dumisani Khumalo as the head of crime intelligence. What we are trying to show here and tell South Africans is that the whole intention is to stop the investigation of this cartel and the operations of this cartel, and all the efforts we are seeing is that there's a concerted effort of making sure that Khumalo and whoever he works with are frustrated in making this end in court, and different approaches are being applied. So he's explicitly saying that Diane Kohler Barnard is doing this maliciously. And it's interesting because he never said she's doing this on behalf of the drug cartel. But we constantly talk on the show about the concept of the useful idiot that comes from the Cold War, of people who drink the Kool-Aid and act for their own interests, but act in such a way that works for the interests of powerful people who, if they could control them, would make them do that stuff anyway. Maybe he's saying that Diane Kohler Barnard is a useful idiot for the drug cartel and helping them inadvertently while trying to push her own and her party's political agenda. But he was explicitly saying that she was fueling malicious attacks and breaking the law by releasing this information. Diane Kohler Barnard responded in statements where she, quote, denied the outrageous, defamatory, and entirely baseless claims. She said she was only sworn into the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence 2 months after she made the statement, and that her request to the Inspector General, she says that's how she got the information, before her joining the Joint Standing Committee was made based on media reports and information already in the public domain. Now, maybe, but how did it get in the public domain? And even if it is in the public domain, you probably shouldn't be making statements about it as a DA MP. You're probably exacerbating it, and you're probably still breaking the law. I don't know the minutiae of it, but just because it's already in the public domain, if you're on a joint standing committee or if you're somehow involved in parliament and you can give the sense of a rubber stamp of affirmation as a politician from the biggest opposition party in the country, second biggest one in the country, that this is something that you believe, it changes the nature of that information. That information becomes something that people should take seriously, becomes something that people think is credible. So that's tricky. And I kind of don't think, stand to be corrected here, I'm sure Diane Kohler Barnard is going to come defend herself, but I kind of don't think that if the answer was as easy as that, it was already out there, bro, and I just applied and I got the information, I don't think Mkhwanazi would have on day 2 been like, she broke the law, because that's what he said. She is breaking the law. Let's get to Fadiel Adams, somebody who's not particularly well known across South Africa, but is the head of the National Coloured Congress, the NCC. They got a few seats in parliament in the last election. Now, Mkhwanazi had a lot of time for Fadiel Adams. Particularly, it seems, because Fadiel Adams has laid criminal complaints against General Mkhwanazi a number of times. I think in Cape Town and also in Johannesburg, according again to Franny Rabkin, making several allegations against crime intelligence, including that its vetting procedures were being manipulated, its secret fund was being abused, and that it is a, quote, private entity that provides service to the former police minister, Becky Cele, and that appointment that I told you about with Dumisani Khumalo was irregular. And then apparently 2 days later, Adams laid the same criminal complaint at a police station in Soweto. So why is this so important? Because the reason why Dumisani Khumalo was arrested and is on bail and currently not at work is because of this allegation about this irregular appointment. So Mkhwanazi sees Fadiel Adams as a politician contributing to the stitched up nonsense case against Dumisani Khumalo to take him out of action, to make him, to have him arrested and be charged with a crime, and to take him out of the ability to continue to do his work into the crime, into this particular drug cartel. Explicitly, like Mkhwanazi sees Adams's allegations as being for that. The secret fund being abused, that is also part of the investigation into Fani Masemola and Dumisani Khumalo for allegedly buying all of these properties, right? And apparently Fadiel Adams also requested that IDAC investigate. This is what Mkhwanazi said. Basically, Mkhwanazi was saying that Fadiel Adams has been a core political operative in the undermining and the stymieing of Dumisani Khumalo, his crime intelligence colleagues' work into this.